This is very interesting Angry Economics by Eric Lonergan and Mark Blyth. The two authors converse with each other and they are discussing issues that rake up anger and discontent and all of that. And we get involved as readers, and it is a real interesting read. The ISBN number is 978-1-78821-279-3. I'm going to read from the back cover from what Branko Milanovic Graduate Center CUNY has to say. He writes, in a series of brilliant Socratic dialogues prepared with a score of real-world stories, Lonergan and Blyth explain the roots of our current anger over austerity policies, job losses, stagnant wages, million-dollar salaries for the few, broken health systems for the many, but also anger about an economic ideology and political system that seem to ignore people as they are. What to do next? How to reset the system? Never were the answers to such questions more urgent. So Eric Lonergan is a macro hedge fund manager in London, and Mark Blyth is a professor of international economics at Brown University. The book begins with this thought: a man is about as big as the things that make him angry, by Winston Churchill. I'm going to read from introduction, the first sentence that says, from economics to ANGRYNOMICS. Strong societies can bounce back from a punch in the face. Consider Iceland. Continuing with the introduction on page 11, it says, why read this book and what's unusual about it? This book is written not for our academic and professional colleagues. They will find the lack of footnotes and the lack of rigor unsettling. Moreover, it is written as a dialogue between the two authors, which is decidedly unscholarly. As we elaborate later in the book, we think of capitalism as a computer that has had just a massive crash. However, only a small software patch was installed to get it up and running again, when what it really needs is a whole new operating system. Populism of the left and right is a recognition of that. Populists are the rogue code writers of politics that thrive on anger. Unfortunately, they are shitty programmers. We hope to motivate the search for a better operating system, they write. So agronomics is here and now. It is determining elections. It is recasting party politics across the world, not just Trump and Brexit, but in countries as diverse as Germany, Brazil, and Ukraine, and in the revival of nationalism in Hungary and Poland, Russia's foreign policy, Turkey's growing anti-Europeanism, and in the collapse of traditional center parties everywhere. We see anger at the stresses. We are all exposed to being hijacked by the media and political classes to expand. We see anger at the stressors. We are all exposed to being hijacked by the media and political classes to detrimental ends. Tribalism and its regulating energy. Anger is a natural reflex, but it is always based upon myths and is ultimately self-defeating. Further, they write, page 12, we have tried to write a book that has some of the forces and dynamic of anger itself. So, what follows is a series of dialogues, not chapters. Conversation allows us to engage and disagree rather than lecture. An open exchange is not a settled debate. Rather, we are inviting the reader to be a part of a conversation and to be free to make up their own mind about what we are saying. Discussion, we feel, better allows us to explain in an accessible way as possible what we think are the issues and what we think can be done about them. Each dialogue begins with a parable which we hope illuminates the problem and suggests where we are going with it. In the last few sentences of the introduction, they write, our aim is not to make the world quieter or calmer just so that the rich can sleep sounder in their beds. Angrynomics is real and needs to be taken seriously. The point is not to quieten the anger because it's uncomfortable for those of us with the most comfort, but to listen to its legitimate expression, learn from it, build a less angry world. Anger becomes opportunity, and that is ANGRYNOMICS. And I read from page 163 postscript, a few sentences. In late March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic pushed the world into lockdown just as the proofs of this book landed on our desks. We immediately wondered, as the pandemic began to unfold, if what we had to say was still of relevance. We were convinced that it is. The key themes of this book are that any society encountering patched-up macroeconomic crashes like 2008, the ever-increasing daily stressors of an aging society beset with rapid technological change and rising inequality was one that would produce an angry anti-system politics. That public anger would manifest itself in legitimate moral outrage and the weaponized energy of tribes. Not only is that still true, it is especially relevant in a current moment. So conclusions, they have headed it as what's been said, what's not, and what we don't want to forget. And I'm just going to read a few lines. Our aim has been to introduce ideas, not to seek to prove them or make the case that nothing else matters. For example, we both agree climate change is the most important challenge facing humanity. Indeed, from that perspective, what we are writing about is trivia. But we think our decision not to start and end with climate change as the defining issue of the moment is justified on the following grounds. If you don't first do something about the anger, about restoring economics over ANGRYNOMICS, then you can forget about ever getting serious policy to address climate change. We will never get them off the drawing board for fighting among ourselves while allowing our tribal instincts to obscure our judgments. Similarly, some may think we give short shrift to cultural explanations for these phenomena, and indeed we do. But we do so because our framework allows us to do something about the underlying causes of ANGRYNOMICS. Starting and ending with cultures does nothing. It's a counsel of despair. So they write, we think we need new policies, and the obsession with positive sum win-win solutions behind us to face that politics is inherently distributional. Some win, some lose, and when the majority consistently loses, the gig is up. As they write, the 2016 Clinton campaign showed having a policy for every problem as a list of band-aids for society ills convinces few. People need to have a policy to mobilize behind, not a list of micro-policies that make little difference, are difficult to explain, and reinforce political divides. So they write, what we have outlined is very ambitious, a way to end recessions by supporting household income directly, a means to give those who don't have an inheritance a significant stake in a collective capital and a data dividend. So technology proves of financial benefit to all and not just a tiny minority of winners. We hope this can serve as a basis for a new politics that goes beyond the tired ideas. They're right. Talking about anger once again. Anger is the arc that helps us make sense of it all, in contrast to weak generalizations about an incoherent populism. Anger has a surprisingly clear structure. Its different manifestations can be identified. So, what people should be angry about? So, is the outrage of the people reasonable? And what should they be angry about? And it's time that you should harness the moral outrage.